Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. So we're all staying safe out there as the storm system continues to really strengthen out there over the Great Plains, and with it bringing some blizzard conditions as well as a likely tornado outbreak overnight tonight as well as into tomorrow. So a whole lot to talk about today. I'm going to try to break this down for you as well as I possibly can. But before we get into that, something I did want to show you real quick on the channel. I did upload a video earlier today of me in front of the green screen here at our UNCC weather studio. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you live maybe in the Charlotte area, you can definitely check that out. But I'll probably post more of those more often on the channel just because it's kind of a good place for me to kind of store those videos to use later on for making demo reels and things like that. But just wanted to point that out real quick before we get into your forecast, which we're going to go ahead and get into right now. So taking a look at radar out here, this is that big old blizzard ongoing up here into the northern Great Plains. So if you're in the Dakotas right now, up into sections of northern Minnesota, you're getting absolutely hammered by this thing this afternoon, and that is going to continue into the overnight. And you know, we've already had some big time storms today out here through the Chicago area. This segment of storms had hail up to 2.5 inches in diameter. So you know, just some really big hail up there. And you can see back here into Missouri, we're already getting signs of that second line of storms forming back here towards kind of Jefferson City, Missouri, and Kansas City right there in between those two cities. Other than that, though, we've been pretty quiet here in the East Coast today, and on satellite you can see that as well, and it has been very warm for a lot of us. Anywhere here kind of south of this cloud deck that you see in here, this is where we have that very kind of soupy, warm, almost summertime-like air taking over as that very warm air from the Gulf continues to drive northward. And of course, as we know, that is helping to fuel this low pressure system up here with that warm air to create some of that damage later on today with those severe storms. So taking a look at our hazards out there, we've got a lot here, and you know, these blizzard warnings have continue to kind of stick around here into the Dakotas and into Minnesota. Other than that, though, we've got some wind advisories here being issued in these kind of beigeish colors here along the Mississippi River Valley. As this cold front sweeps on through, the wind is really going to pick up with it. And then back here into the kind of southwestern section of the country here into the southern plains, into these kind of deserty areas, we have some red flag warnings, and I didn't include this in the presentation here today, but we're gonna have a really big fire risk out here, and the main reason I didn't include it is just because there's not many people that watch my channel from this area, so kind of wanted to talk about other things. But if you do happen to be out here, please be careful if you're burning anything, because this is about as bad as it can get in terms of conditions for fires to spread and cause lots of problems. So definitely make sure you're careful if that's something you're doing. Now, getting into the severe weather threat, again, we've got two moderate risks today, one up there into Iowa and then another one further south into Arkansas. So this kind of northern section here is going to be for this later afternoon and into this evening, while this kind of southern area is going to be for more of an overnight severe weather threat. So kind of two different timetables with those threats, but nonetheless very similar impacts of strong tornadoes possible, as well as definitely strong straight line winds and large damaging hail. Going into tomorrow, that threat shifts off to the east, and it's a big area under the gun here from as far north as Michigan to as far south as the Texas Gulf Coast, having that chance of severe storms tomorrow. But I think the real bullseye will be up here into the Midwest from kind of Ohio over to Illinois. So cities like Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, Louisville, Paducah, Kentucky, Detroit, Michigan, those kind of cities in that region are really going to have the risk for some big-time storms tomorrow, once again with the threat of potentially tornadoes as well as so I guess the southern enemy as well as some strong wind and hail. So now moving on over to day 3 here, which is Thursday, if my math is correct. That risk of severe storms will be smaller, but will still be evident here through sections of the mid-Atlantic, from Philly all the way down to maybe as far south as the Charlotte metro, but most of these storms will kind of come in during the later half of Thursday, I think. So if this can kind of trend a little bit sooner to where you can get a little bit more instability to work with this line of storms, maybe we can get some of these storms to become severe during the evening hours of Thursday. But right now it doesn't look like anything off the chart into this section of the country. So now going into our future cast here, let's go ahead and break this down for you. We'll start up here into the northern plains, and of course your time is up here on the top right of your screen to see what kind of or what timetable we're looking at here. But right now, again, those blizzard conditions are really getting underway here into sections of the northern plains. So very strong winds, wind gusting to 50 miles an hour with very heavy snow falling is going to be a problem for those communities up there. But it's really over into about 7, 8 o'clock tonight, about the time the sun is setting out here. We're going to get this line of very dangerous storms to develop. And any of these cells out here in front too have the really big potential to create very long-lasting, violent tornadoes. So we're going to have to watch all of these cells as they form. And then you can see, I think the real timetable for the worst of this will be from about 8 to 10 o'clock. That's whenever these storms will be the most isolated and have the best potential to cause long-track violent tornadoes. But luckily, I say luckily, but as we get later into the overnight, they kind of congeal a bit more, and it turns into more of a damaging wind, hail kind of threat, although still strong embedded tornadoes possible. But the big-time kind of violent photogenic tornadoes that we're going to see, I think, are going to be from about 8 to 10 o'clock tonight. That's just the first round, though. After that kind of moves on through Wisconsin, going closer towards midnight, we get that second round of storms of fire back down here into Kansas and Missouri. And this is that overnight threat I was talking about. And you can see that line of storms moves through and can also produce some strong and dangerous storms. Now, as we get into tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon, that's whenever that threat is going to shift further off towards Indiana, Ohio, and Detroit, into kind of these regions, and you'll see this line of storms will work through there through much of the day tomorrow, impacting places like Detroit around tomorrow afternoon, Indianapolis as well, having that threat of storms, and then that will even extend all the way down into areas further to the south. But luckily, after that line of storms moves through tomorrow, once we get into tomorrow evening, into the overnight, we really clear out here into the upper Midwest with much nicer weather in store for your Thursday and especially Friday, whenever we kind of have the all clear. So talking about snowfall totals real quick, still more than a foot of snow to come here into sections of North Dakota and Minnesota. So if you're up in these regions, you're not out of the woods at all. You still have plenty more snow to come, so definitely make sure you're still being careful through these regions as that blizzard continues to rage on. Moving on down to the southeast now. Again, we've had a very nice day here for many of us, with temperatures climbing very well into the 70s and 80s, with that summertime feeling kind of out there. But overnight tonight is whenever that severe threat will begin to work its way into sections on the kind of western fringe of your map here. So again, this is that line of storms I've been talking about, and it's going to extend likely all the way as far south as Dallas, having the potential of some of these strong storms tomorrow morning. But as we get into tomorrow afternoon is whenever I think the most dangerous part of this will occur, and this will happen right along the Mississippi River Valley here from Little Rock over to Memphis, and then places further north here near Cape Girardeau, having the chance of some of these strong storms moving through. Luckily, though, again, after they move through, you're all clear. So I think going into tomorrow evening, Little Rock, St. Louis, Dallas, these places will be in much better shape, but then that threat shifts off to places like Memphis, Jackson, Mississippi, just about much of Mississippi in general, northern Alabama, central Tennessee, central Kentucky, having the threat of these very strong storms with strong winds, hail, and isolated damaging tornadoes to move on through. But again, luckily, after that line moves through, much nicer weather should follow in behind it. Unfortunately, though, as we get into Thursday afternoon, this is as far as the map, or as far as this model goes, this front is going to kind of stall out a bit. So areas down here into Mississippi, Louisiana, sections of southern Texas, Alabama, are going to have the chance of some of this rain to stick around for a while. Even if the severe threat dies down a bit, we'll still have this rain sticking around. And this is also whenever we need to watch out for Thursday. If this kind of line of storms can develop through these regions, we could have a severe risk on Thursday as well from really anywhere throughout the mid-Atlantic and even isolated spots into the southeast. So now kind of zooming this out onto more of a large scale and moving into this weekend a bit. Again, this big old blizzard going on right now with severe weather to the south and east overnight tonight and into tomorrow and even potentially Thursday. That moves on through, but then as I was talking about, once we get into Friday, you can see this cold front kind of moves on through a lot of places into the Midwest and Northeast, but then kind of stalls out over the Southeast. So as I move this ahead into Friday afternoon, you notice this front kind of just stalls out here along the I-20 and I-85 corridors, and with that bringing rounds of rain, although I don't think the severe weather threat will be nearly as bad. we'll still have just kind of rounds of rain moving on through much of Friday and Saturday through the southeast before finally getting into Easter Sunday. Things look nicer for most of us, although coastal regions here of the Carolinas will have to watch out as it looks like low pressure tries to form off the coast here, and that could keep around some of that cloudy, rainy weather on your Easter Sunday. But I think areas further inland here into Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia could have much nicer weather for Easter before going into early next week, and we look to return to more of a spring-like pattern. So talking about the temperatures involved with this, again, very warm, above average kind of summertime weather ongoing right now from the southerly flow. But as this cold front sweeps on through and begins to stall out across the southeast going into Friday, you'll notice where we have this area of unsettled rainy weather on Friday afternoon. It'll feel very cold. It'll almost feel like a kind of cold, wet, rainy day during the winter time for Friday, which is very different than what we're experiencing now. So don't let that catch you off guard before, again, luckily, as we go into early next week, I think we kind of rebound for many of us through the country. And we will have to watch that low pressure off the southeast coast to see if that kind of keeps around some rainy, stormy weather through early next week. But right now, I think it'll be likely a bit better than this map kind of depicts, but of course we have plenty of time for that to change. So with all that said, again, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure you're staying safe out there. Make sure everyone that's up in those places that have the chance for dangerous weather have a way to get those warnings overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well. But with all that said, again, make sure you're staying safe, and I will see you all tomorrow.